The stars were not silent anymore. They were afraid. For thousands of years the galaxy had never stopped talking. Every day a million voices filled the void. Trade ships calling for docking, diplomats arguing across light years, and fleets patrolling the endless dark. The galaxy was alive, busy, proud of its greatness, until the silence came. It began on the outer rim, far from the great empires. The Kreth Dominion vanished first. Their worlds went dark, their fleets disappeared, and their beacons stopped flashing. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just silence. At first no one cared. The Kreth were cruel conquerors. But then the same silence spread to others. The Thrall Combine fell next. Then the Syndic trade worlds. Then the Uvati high castes. Each time witnesses spoke of a fleet that moved like a shadow through the stars. Ships larger than cities, darker than space itself, sailing in perfect silence. No signals, no symbols, and except one message left behind on every fallen world. We remember Earth. Those 4 words shook the galaxy. Earth. A forgotten name. A world that once existed on the edge of a spiral arm. A small blue planet where an old primitive race called humans had lived. Long ago, when the advanced races first found them, humanity had begged for friendship, for a place among the stars. But the galaxy had seen them as weak, wild, and useful only for labor. Humans were enslaved, studied, and finally destroyed. The record said Earth had burned 1,000 years ago. So how could they return? In the great citadel of the Aurelian Concord, High Chancellor Vera watched the news feed from her throne. A tall, graceful being made of golden light, she had led her people for 200 years. But even she trembled when she saw the image on the screen. It showed a single Terran warship hovering above a ruined planet. The ship was the size of a moon, its hull reflecting the light of a dying sun. Beneath it the surface burned, entire cities erased by precise energy strikes. Across the planet's clouds glowing blue letters slowly formed. For Earth. For the lost. Her advisor, a young aide with trembling hands, whispered, "What are they? What do they want from us?" Vera's voice was quiet, heavy with guilt. "I think they want us to remember." She turned away from the screen, her eyes dim. She had read the ancient archives, the ones buried deep beneath the Concord libraries. She knew what the galaxy had done. The humans had asked for a place to live, to learn, to grow. Instead, the galaxy had enslaved them, afraid of what they might become. The humans had built ships for others, fought wars for others, and then, when they grew too advanced, they were erased. Their homeworld destroyed, their people scattered and hunted. But they had survived. Somewhere in the cold and lonely darkness, the children of Earth had rebuilt themselves. They had turned pain into strength, loss into power, silence into song. And now they were coming back. In the outer systems, millions watched as dark silhouettes filled the skies. The ships moved in perfect formation, like blades slicing through night. They carried no flags, no colors, no sound, only that deep, steady pulse that echoed across space. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of humanity, slow and unbroken. On the moon of Eric 7, an old miner looked up at the sky. He had heard stories of the Terrans when he was young, bedtime tales of the race that never gave up. Now he whispered softly, "You came back, after all this time." The ground trembled beneath his feet as a Terran vessel passed overhead, its engines glowing with pale blue fire. It did not attack. It did not speak. It only moved forward, steady, unstoppable, filled with purpose. Every government tried to communicate, sending pleas, peace offers, and surrender codes. None received a reply. The Terran fleet did not answer anyone. They didn't need to. Their silence was louder than war. Then, after weeks of fear, the galaxy finally heard the voice of the Terrans. It came through every frequency on every channel in every language that had ever existed. The voice was calm, human, and sorrowful. Not angry, not cruel, but heavy with memory. "We came from dust. You made us monsters. Now you will know our silence. And then, the message ended. The stars dimmed. Every world, every empire, every being felt the same chill spreading through their hearts. The Terran fleet was not a myth. It was a promise, kept after 1,000 years. When the Terran fleet arrived, every world in the galaxy went silent. The silence didn't last forever. Something had to break it. And when it did, the galaxy would never forget. On the quiet world of Valara Prime, people waited under dark skies. Once, Valara had been a peaceful planet, golden deserts, twin suns, and floating cities above clouds. But now the air was thick with fear. The Terran fleet had entered their system. Every telescope showed the same image, black ships surrounding the planet like shadows of doom. There were no words, no messages, only the low hum of engines that sounded like distant thunder. Inside the command tower, Governor Talon stood before the observation window, his hands trembling behind his back. He had seen wars before, and he had ordered fleets, commanded armies, but never had he faced an enemy that said nothing. The Terrans didn't threaten, didn't demand surrender, didn't even seem angry. That somehow made them more terrifying. Behind him, his daughter Lyra watched the skies with wide eyes. She was only 19, a student of xenohistory, but she knew the old stories, the ones the galaxy tried to erase. "Father," she whispered, "are they really humans?" Talon's throat tightened. "No one knows, child. Maybe they are what's left of them, maybe not. But they remember Earth, and that is enough to fear." Lyra turned toward him, her voice trembling. "But what did we do to them? Why are they angry at everyone?" He closed his eyes, remembering what he had read long ago in forbidden archives. Stories of how the ancient races had enslaved the humans, calling them servants of the stars. They were used until they broke, and when they demanded freedom, their world was burned. He had thought those were only legends. Now he knew they were true. Outside, the fleet moved closer. The largest Terran battleship slowly rotated above Valara's twin suns. Its hull gleamed like a mirror, reflecting the planet's beauty below, as if to show the people what they were about to lose. Thousands of smaller ships followed, each shaped differently, yet united by one symbol, a white circle carved on the hull, surrounding a single blue star, the mark of Earth. Every scanner in Valara's defense network flashed red. Energy readings rose far beyond anything known. Commanders shouted, soldiers ran, and defense grids powered up. But before they could fire, every weapon system went dead. Screens went black. Engines stopped. The entire planet froze, powerless. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere. From the sky, from the radios, from the hearts of the terrified. "We are the children of Earth. You forgot us. We did not forget you." The voice was human, deep, steady, calm. It carried sorrow, not rage. It made people stop breathing. Some fell to their knees, others wept. Governor Talon whispered, "They're not attacking. They're speaking," the voice continued. "We asked for peace. You gave us pain. We begged for mercy. You gave us fire. You buried us beneath your stars, but we rose, stronger than your empires." The sky filled with light. The Terran ships opened their lower bays, revealing thousands of smaller vessels, not weapons, but drones. They descended slowly, covering the atmosphere in a soft blue glow. Instead of destroying, they began broadcasting images, real, ancient images, across every screen on the planet. They showed the truth. Old footage of humans building ships with alien overseers watching. Humans chained in mining colonies. Humans crying as cities burned on Earth. Then came images of defiance. Small Terran ships fighting impossible battles. People raising torn flags under the ashes. And finally a message carved into the side of a ruined Earth ship drifting in space. "We will come home." The people of Valara Prime watched in silence. No one spoke. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath. Lyra covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. They suffered so much, and we forgot them. Her father nodded slowly. Yes, and now they are reminding the galaxy of its crimes. Above them, the Terran battleship slowly turned again, its engines humming like a heartbeat. Then, without warning, the blue glow faded. The drones vanished back into the ships. The voice spoke one last time, soft but filled with meaning. We are not your slaves. We are not your myths. We are humanity, and we have returned. Then, silence again. The Terran fleet began to move away from Valara Prime, leaving the planet untouched. They didn't destroy a single city. They didn't take lives, but they left something behind far more powerful than fire: guilt, awe, and fear. Across the galaxy, the message spread faster than light. Billions saw the same images, heard the same words. The galaxy trembled as the truth reached every corner. Humanity had returned, and this time, they weren't here to beg. They were here to be remembered. The message from the Terran spread like a storm through the galaxy. Every planet, every moon, every space station played the same haunting voice. We are humanity, and we have returned. Those words echoed across the stars, shaking the hearts of billions. For the first time in thousands of years, the great empires felt something they had forgotten: fear. In the floating halls of the Aurelian Concord, High Chancellor Vera stood before the Council of Systems. Hundreds of alien leaders filled the great chamber, reptilian, crystalline, insectoid, and luminous beings, all whispering, arguing, trembling. The room that once commanded power now felt small under the shadow of that voice. A hologram of the Terran fleet hovered above the table. Thousands of ships drifting in formation, silent and beautiful like a dark sea of ghosts. Vera raised her golden hand for silence. Her voice was calm but heavy. Every empire has heard their message. The humans are not seeking alliance or trade. They are showing us something. Their pain, their survival, their strength. A deep, rumbling voice broke the silence. It belonged to Admiral Korth, a giant warrior of the Thrall Combine. His scales shimmered red in anger. We should destroy them before they reach the core worlds. They are one fleet, we are hundreds. Vera's eyes flashed. Did you not see what they did to your outposts, Admiral? Entire systems vanished without a shot fired. Your weapons could not even lock onto their ships. The Admiral hissed, but said nothing more. Then came the voice of Ambassador Ylra of the Veilborn, a race known for their cold logic. Perhaps they seek justice? Perhaps if we show remorse. Remorse? Another council member shouted. They are primitives. They should have stayed extinct. Vera turned toward him sharply. Primitives? They crossed the void alone after you burned their world. They built ships from the bones of planets you destroyed, and now they stand at our gates stronger than all of us combined. If that is primitive, then what are we? The chamber fell into silence again. Vera looked around slowly, her golden eyes softening. We made them monsters. Now they have come to remind us of what we did, and perhaps to see if we are still capable of shame. Outside the Citadel, millions watched the skies. News screens replayed the images of Earth's fall. The fire, the chains, the humans standing beneath their burning world. On some planets, people wept. On others, they raged, calling it lies and manipulation. But deep down, they all felt the same truth. The Terrans were not lying, and that truth hurt more than any weapon. On a distant world called Seraphis, a group of young scholars gathered in the night. They had been studying ancient human languages for decades, treating them as dead history. Now they realized those words might save them. A boy named Terran, barely 20, stared at an image of a Terran symbol, a blue star within a circle. They remember everything, he whispered. Even the smallest words we erased. An older scholar nodded slowly. They never forgot who they were. That is why they are stronger than us. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Terran fleet kept moving. Quiet, unstoppable. They passed through star systems without firing a single shot. But wherever they went, the local governments surrendered before they arrived. They didn't even ask for peace. They simply waited, afraid to anger the ghosts of humanity. Some tried to contact the fleet directly. Messages were sent in hundreds of languages, filled with apologies, offers, and promises of peace. But the Terrans did not respond. Their silence was their answer. In the outer colonies, fear turned to worship. Statues of humans were built again, not as slaves or victims, but as legends. People prayed to them, hoping they would spare their worlds. Songs spread, songs that spoke of Earth's courage, of human fire that refused to die. Even among the powerful, guilt began to bloom like a poison. High Chancellor Vera sat alone in her chamber that night, staring at the stars. She remembered when she was young, reading about Earth's destruction in the hidden archives. She had thought it was a necessary act, the removal of a violent species. But now she understood. Humanity had not been violent. They had been afraid. And the galaxy had answered their fear with cruelty. A single tear of golden light slid down her cheek. "We made a mistake," she whispered to the stars. And they remembered. At that same moment, far away, the Terran flagship, TFS Genesis, drifted through the dark. Inside its silent bridge stood Admiral Marcus Hale, the man who led the return of humanity. He looked out at the endless void, his reflection faint in the glass. His eyes were tired but strong. Behind him, a young officer asked quietly, "Sir, the galaxy has seen the message. What are your orders now?" Hale didn't answer immediately. He watched the stars, the same stars that had once looked down on Earth before it burned. His voice was calm, filled with quiet sorrow. "Now," he said, "we see if they have learned to listen." And the fleet kept moving on deeper, closer, unbroken. The galaxy had awakened to the memory of Earth, but it had no idea what was coming next. The galaxy was trembling. Every empire watched the dark horizon where the Terran fleet moved in a shadow across the stars. They had seen the message, felt the silence, and now they waited for what came next. But humanity was not rushing toward war. They were waiting too. Far beyond the borders of known space, near a dying star called Erebos, the Terran flagship TFS Genesis floated in the cold void. Its surface shimmered with faint blue light like a sleeping giant. Inside, the bridge was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of power running through the walls. Admiral Marcus Hale stood near the viewing window, his gaze lost among the stars. He was a man in his late 50s, his face marked with deep lines of time and battle. His eyes were gray, not cold but tired, like someone who had seen too much pain and carried it in silence. He had led humanity's return. He had rebuilt what the galaxy destroyed. But he was not proud. He was only sad. Behind him, Commander Arya Voss, his second-in-command, approached carefully. "Sir," she said softly, "the Aurelian Concord has sent a delegation. They request a meeting, face-to-face." Marcus did not turn. "After all this time, they finally want to speak?" Arya nodded. "They say they want peace." Marcus closed his eyes for a long moment. "Peace," he whispered. They used that word before they burned Earth. For a while, there was only silence between them. Then finally, Marcus straightened his shoulders. "Prepare the chamber. Let them come. But they will not find the same people they left to die." Hours later, a small golden ship appeared near Genesis. It carried 3 delegates from the Aurelian Concord, led by High Chancellor Vera herself. She stepped into the Terran vessel surrounded by human guards in dark armor. The air was heavy, not with hostility but with memory. As she entered the great hall, she stopped. Before her stood a sight that took her breath away. The Hall of Earth, a massive circular room lined with holograms of mountains, forests, and oceans. The Terrans had rebuilt the images of their lost home here, a memory turned into light. In the center stood a simple flag, the old blue planet on a white field. Below it were carved the words, "We endured, we remember." Vera's golden light dimmed with emotion. She bowed her head. "Admiral Hale, she said quietly. Thank you for meeting with us. Marcus studied her carefully. You are brave to come. Few would walk willingly into the shadow of those they wronged. She met his gaze. Perhaps it is time we stop running from our guilt? For a moment neither spoke. The silence was not heavy, it was honest. Then Vera continued, her voice trembling slightly. We saw what your people showed us. We saw what was done to Earth many among us did not know. Others chose not to remember. I am here to ask, what is it that humanity wants? Marcus looked at her quietly. You think we came for revenge? She hesitated.
Did you not?
He shook his head slowly. If we wanted revenge, your worlds would already be ash. We came for something far greater. Remembrance. Justice. And maybe forgiveness. Vera's eyes softened. Then why the silence? Why the fear you spread? Because fear, Marcus said softly, is the only language the galaxy ever taught us. When we asked for peace, you gave us chains. When we asked for mercy, you gave us fire. Now we speak in silence, and so you may finally listen. His words echoed in the chamber. Vera lowered her head. And will you ever forgive us? Marcus turned toward the hologram of Earth. Blue, fragile, beautiful. Forgiveness cannot be demanded. It must be earned. The galaxy must prove it can change. For the first time, the High Chancellor saw something human in his eyes, pain mixed with hope. Then let us begin again, she said softly. Let us build what we destroyed. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Perhaps. But understand this, where we will never kneel again. Vera smiled faintly. Nor should you. When the meeting ended, Vera stepped back into her golden ship. As she looked out through the window, she saw the Terran fleet glowing softly in the distance. Vast, powerful, and silent. Yet now, for the first time, she no longer saw them as monsters. She saw them as survivors. Back on the Genesis, Marcus watched her ship disappear into the stars. Commander Arya turned to him. Do you trust her, sir? He sighed. I don't know. But if there's even a chance they've learned, we must give them that chance, Arya nodded. And if they betray us again? Marcus's eyes hardened. Then the silence will return, and it will be their last. Outside, the dying star of Erebos flickered weakly, its light touching both ships, one of gold, one of black. Two civilizations, once enemies, now standing at the edge of something new. Maybe hope. Maybe destruction. Only time would decide. The meeting between the Terrans and the Aurelian Concord spread through the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time in 1,000 years, hope and fear traveled together. Some worlds rejoiced. Others prepared for war. And among the countless stars, one question burned brighter than all. What will humanity do next? Aboard the Terran flagship TFS Genesis, the air felt heavy with decision. Admiral Marcus Hale stood alone in the Hall of Earth, staring at the holographic oceans that shimmered before him. Blue waves rolled quietly under the soft hum of the ship, a dream recreated from ashes. To him, those waves were not just water. They were memories. He could almost hear laughter, feel wind, smell rain. But they were ghosts, echoes of a world long gone. Commander Arya Voss entered quietly behind him. Her steps were soft, respectful. Sir, she said gently, the fleet is ready for your command. The council is waiting. Marcus didn't turn. Tell me, Arya, he asked, what do you see when you look at this? She paused, glancing at the glowing image of Earth. I see beauty, sir. I see what we lost. He nodded slowly. I see something else. I see failure. I see the people we couldn't save and the ones who screamed when the skies burned. Arya looked down. She had heard the stories, the final moments of Earth when the skies were filled with alien fire and humanity was left to die. Her grandparents had been among the survivors who escaped in broken ships carrying nothing but memories. Sir, she whispered, we can't bring them back, but we can honor them. Maybe that's what this is about. Marcus turned toward her, his eyes tired but steady. Honor means nothing if we forget why they died. We don't fight to destroy the galaxy, Arya. We fight so the galaxy will never again do what it did to us. He stepped forward, his reflection shining in the holographic sea. The Chancellor's words were honest, I felt it. But honesty is not the same as change. Arya nodded. So what will you do? He looked out into the endless dark. We wait. But while we wait, we remind them who we are. Across the galaxy, the Terran fleet began its next mission. Not to conquer, but to reveal. Their ships entered system after system, broadcasting the echoes of Earth, recordings from humanity's past. Voices, songs, stories, and memories filled the skies of alien worlds. On Draxus, the children of a warrior race stood open-mouthed as they watched a projection of a Terran mother singing her baby to sleep under the stars. On Mirrodel, miners stopped their work as holograms showed human scientists laughing while building their first starship, their faces shining with hope. And on Aurelia Prime, the capital of the conquered, millions gathered to see something that made even the strongest hearts break, the final transmission from Earth. A young girl, her face dirty with ash, speaking to a broken camera. If someone finds this, tell them we tried. Tell them we loved the stars. The galaxy wept. Even the proud empires that once ruled by fear lowered their flags in silence. The Terrans had not come to destroy them. They had come to show them what they destroyed. The message was clear. Humanity was not a myth. Humanity was memory. Meanwhile, High Chancellor Vera sat in her private chamber watching the broadcast. The girl's voice echoed in her mind again and again. She whispered softly, "We did this, and they still have the grace to show us beauty." Her aide entered carefully. "Chancellor, what shall we tell the Council? Some worlds demand we disarm. Others fear they'll attack again." Vera stood slowly, her golden light flickering. "Tell them to stop fearing and start listening. The Terrans have already won, not through war but through truth." Back on the Genesis, Admiral Hale watched the reactions from across the galaxy. Every world was talking, every heart was trembling. Humanity's silence had become a voice louder than any weapon. Commander Arya stepped beside him. "Sir, do you think they finally understand us?" Marcus smiled faintly, though it was filled with sorrow. "Understanding is not enough. They must feel what we felt, the loneliness, the pain, the endless nights wondering why no one came." Arya hesitated. "And if they don't change?" Marcus's voice hardened, quiet but cold. "Then we remind them again, louder, until every empire remembers the price of silence." He turned back toward the stars. Outside, the Terran fleet shone against the black, a moving constellation of vengeance and remembrance. For the first time in galactic history, the mighty empires were learning humility. The ones who once enslaved humanity now looked up at the same sky, knowing they were being watched by those they once destroyed. The children of Earth had no planet, but they had become something greater, the conscience of the galaxy. And as the Genesis glided through the void, the Admiral whispered to himself, "We are the voice of the forgotten. We are the fire that never died. We are Earth, even without the soil beneath our feet." The stars seemed to flicker brighter, as if the universe itself remembered too. The echoes of Earth had begun to change the galaxy, but not everyone was ready to accept it. Some still feared the Terrans, some still planned in the shadows. And soon, the galaxy would face a new choice, to stand with humanity or against it. The storm was not over. It was only gathering strength. Peace is a fragile thing. It can be broken not by guns, but by fear. Weeks had passed since the Terrans released the echoes of Earth. Across the galaxy, millions of hearts were changed. Empires that once saw humans as weak now spoke their names with respect. Old enemies began to talk about peace and rebuilding trust. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, not everyone accepted this new truth. Some still hated the Terrans, Some still feared their power, and fear gives birth to danger. On the hidden world of Chorus 9, deep beneath Black Mountains, a secret meeting took place. Representatives of 5 ancient species gathered in a dark hall, the same empires responsible for the destruction of Earth long ago. At the center sat Lord Traven of the Syndic worlds, his eyes cold as ice. Around him, holograms flickered, reptilian generals, insectoid commanders, and pale-faced nobles, all whispering their worries. Traven spoke first. "You've all seen what the humans are doing. They spread their message like a disease. Entire worlds bow to them. If we don't act now, they will rule us through fear." A voice hissed through the shadows. "They claim they want peace. You saw their message," Traven smirked. "Peace is just another weapon. They're using guilt to conquer the galaxy. Today they share stories. Tomorrow they'll demand judgment," another leader growled. "Then what do you propose?" Traven's eyes narrowed. "We strike first, in secret, not against their fleet, but against their image. If the galaxy learns that humans are still monsters, their power will crumble." Silence filled the room. Then slowly, one by one, the others agreed. Thus began the Shadow War. Back aboard the TFS Genesis, Admiral Marcus Hale stared at a holographic map showing hundreds of systems. One by one, strange attacks had begun. Small colonies destroyed, outposts vanished, communication lines cut. At first, it seemed random, but Marcus knew better. "They're testing us," he said quietly. Commander Arya Voss frowned. "Testing, sir?" "Yes," he replied. "They can't face us directly, so they'll use fear, the same way they used it on us centuries ago." He turned toward her, his eyes burning with purpose. "Find out who's behind it. No mercy this time." Arya nodded and left the bridge, determination in her steps. But inside she felt something heavy, sadness. She had believed the galaxy could change. She had believed peace was real. Now that belief was fading. In the following weeks, the attacks grew worse. Terran aid convoys sent to help poor worlds were ambushed. Colonies that had welcomed the Terrans were bombed. And on one quiet moon, Lunara 9, a school that taught about human history was destroyed by an unknown strike. Hundreds of children died. The galaxy mourned. But some began to whisper lies. Humans did this to themselves. They faked the attacks for sympathy. They want power, not peace. And just like that, the light of hope began to dim. When Admiral Hale saw the images of the destroyed school, something inside him broke. He stood silently for a long time before whispering, "They're using the same cruelty we once faced." Commander Arya placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sir, what do we do?" He turned toward her, his voice low and steady. "We remind them again who we are. We will not become monsters. We will not answer hate with hate. But we will show them that silence does not mean weakness." Meanwhile, in the golden halls of the Aurelian Concord, High Chancellor Vera faced her own storm. The council demanded she cut ties with the Terrans. "They bring chaos wherever they go," one shouted. "The people are afraid." Vera stood tall, her golden light flickering with anger. "The people are afraid because of the lies you feed them. The Terrans did not start this war. We did long ago when we burned their world." She slammed her hand on the table. "If the Terrans fall, the truth falls with them, and then we will return to our old darkness." But even as she spoke, she knew the darkness had already begun to move. In the outer systems, the Terran fleet gathered again. Thousands of ships glowed under distant suns. They had once been silent. Now they were preparing for defense. But it was not rage that filled them. It was resolve. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. His fleet waited for his word. "Sir," Arya said quietly, "the enemy hides in the shadows. How can we fight what we cannot see?" Marcus smiled sadly. "By being the light." He raised his hand and the order went out. All across the fleet, human voices spoke in unison. Calm, strong, unbroken. "We are the children of Earth. We will not vanish again. We stand for those who remember." We stand for those who never knew. The galaxy watched as the Terran fleet lit the darkness with their blue engines, thousands of stars igniting in perfect formation. It was not a fleet of vengeance anymore. It was a fleet of truth, of remembrance, of warning. But deep in the shadows, Lord Travan watched the light with cold eyes and whispered, "Let them shine. The brighter they burn, the easier they'll be to destroy." And somewhere between light and darkness, the future of the galaxy hung in silence. The storm had returned, and this time, it was not only made of ships, it was made of truth, fear, and the ghosts of the past. The galaxy had become a storm of whispers and shadows. Lies spread faster than light, twisting the truth, and through that storm, the Terran fleet stood like a wall of silence, unbroken, unyielding. Admiral Marcus Hale knew that peace was dying. Every day brought new reports, colonies in flames, alliances crumbling, hope fading, yet despite it all, the Terran banner still glowed in the darkness, carrying 3 words written in light: for Earth, for the lost. Those words had guided them through centuries of pain, and now they would guide them into the final battle. The TFS Genesis floated above a dying sun, its silver hull reflecting the orange glow of burning space debris. On its bridge, Marcus watched the holographic map as red symbols multiplied across the galactic rim. "They're coming," said Commander Aria Voss quietly. Her eyes were tired, but steady. "All the remaining fleets and Travan's coalition, the Syndic warbands, even the Yuvathi mercenaries, they've united against us." Marcus gave a sad smile. "The same ones who destroyed us once before." She nodded. "History repeats." He turned to her and said softly, "Then let's end the cycle." The enemy came in waves, thousands of ships roaring through the void. Their weapons burned brighter than suns, their hate sharper than any blade. The stars shook as energy beams split through the black sea of space. But the Terrans did not run. They stood their ground. From the dark horizon, the Terran fleet moved forward, engines glowing blue, their formation perfect and silent. No fear, no chaos, only resolve. Each ship carried the names of the fallen: New Eden, Spirit of Mars, Homefire, the last child of Earth, and as they advanced, their comms came alive with a single human voice, calm, deep, and filled with sorrow. "We are the sons and daughters of a forgotten world. We do not fight for power. We fight so that silence will never rule again." The words spread through every frequency, reaching even enemy ships. Some pilots stopped firing. Some broke formation. For the first time in centuries, many of them felt guilt. High above the battlefield, Lord Travan watched from his flagship, the Harrow. His fleet was massive, millions of lives under his command. Yet even as the war raged, he felt a strange unease watching the humans. "They should scream. They should beg," he muttered. "But they don't." An aide hesitated. "Sir, perhaps they do not fight for victory." Travan frowned. "Then what?" The aide looked away. "Perhaps they fight to remind us what we lost." For a brief second, doubt flickered in Travan's eyes. And in that second, the Terrans struck. A blinding wave of light burst from the center of the human fleet. Not a weapon, but a signal. The echoes of Earth broadcasted one final time, sending the sound of oceans, wind, laughter, and rain across the galaxy. Every ship, every soldier, every world heard it. The sound of home. It broke through walls of hate like sunlight through storm clouds. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Commanders wept. Even the machines paused, as if remembering something lost. Admiral Hale watched from his bridge as tears filled his eyes. "That's Earth," he whispered. "The last sound we ever recorded." "Before the fire." Aria Voss looked at him, voice trembling. "Then this is how we win." Hours later, when the smoke cleared, the battlefield was silent. The Terran fleet was shattered. Many ships destroyed, others burning slowly in orbit. But the enemy fleets were gone too. Some fled, some surrendered, and some simply drifted, powerless and broken. The war had ended, not with victory, but with remembrance. High Chancellor Vera broadcast her message to the galaxy. The Terrans did not conquer us. They reminded us. They reminded us that life is not about domination, but memory. We silenced them once, and they returned not with vengeance, but truth. Her voice echoed across systems, and people wept, not out of fear but out of shame, and then hope. In the ruins of the TFS Genesis, Admiral Marcus Hale stood among the shattered glass of the command deck. His ship floated above the wreckage of 1,000 stars. The light of the dying sun painted his face in gold and red. Arya approached him, limping, covered in ash. "Sir, the fleet is gone." "What now?" He smiled weakly. "Now, Commander, they will rebuild. Without us." "That's how it should be," she frowned. "And us?" Marcus looked out at the endless void. "We were never meant to stay. We came to remind the galaxy of what it means to be human." He turned toward her and added softly, "Now they'll remember." Outside, what remained of the Terran ships began to drift together, their engines glowing one last time. They aligned, forming a single symbol in space, a circle of light surrounding a blue point, the image of Earth. Across the galaxy, billions watched that symbol and understood. Humanity was not a species. It was a memory, a heartbeat, a promise. As the Genesis's power faded, Marcus whispered his final words. "We were from the dust, we became fire, and through the stars, we became eternal." And when the Terran fleet finally went silent, the galaxy did not fear. It wept, because this time, the silence meant peace, and the legend of Earth became the dawn of a new age.